All right, folks, we're going to do an episode of Tell Us Your Best Story with my friend Caitlin Cantel from Eureka Springs. Now, this is going to be a little bit different one because I'm going to tell the stories. Even though we have you here and I've wanted to hear your stories, Caitlin just woke up, as you can tell, because the sun's going down and it's nighttime. But I'm going to start the ball rolling by telling a couple stories. Now, I was in the middle of telling a story about an artist named Forrest Prince from Houston. And I've also got to tell us your best story with him coming up, but I haven't posted it yet. But let me finish the story for you and for all of you. So Forrest Prince, he's an amazing artist in Houston. I don't know, he's in his 60s, 70s, something like that. I don't. No. You can walk off and get one.
Well, I'm not talking.
We're in her house studio. In fact, I'll show you real quick before I start the story. This is her art stuff in her studio, and I thought I'd just sit down and tell a couple stories here. So Caitlin, Forrest Prince. He was interviewed by Marvin Zindler, the famous Houston guy, Houston newsman who did the, what's that movie? The Chicken Ranch in Houston, Best Little Whorehouse in Texas?
Yes.
It was based off of Marvin Zindler. But Marvin Zindler did a story on Forrest Prince. And here's the crazy thing about this.
This is what I've been waiting for.
Yes. So Forrest starts going to convalescent homes to like visit people just to be a good human being. Your cat's wanting to get in on the story. What's the cat's name?
That's Murphy.
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 Okay.
Like Murphy's Law.
And you have Slaw.
And I have Slaw.
She has a cat named Murphy and a cat named Slaw. Murphy, Slaw.
And I have Newton also.
And Murder
Snake.
Murder Snake. So Forrest is going to these convalescent homes. He meets a woman who has had a stroke and can't speak. He visits with her, and through the time of visiting, he writes down, gets her to blink. I don't know how he did it, but he ended up learning how to communicate with her. No one else had done this before. This woman's been in the convalescent home for years. No one has spoken to her. Forrest.
Family didn't come and visit.
That's.
Okay.
Yeah, don't jump ahead because it's pretty wild.
I know nothing.
So Forrest gets her to speak, communicate, and here's what he finds out. 26 years prior.
I just got the goosebumps on my entire body.
You should get the goosebumps. 26 years prior, she had this stroke and was not able to speak, and her husband brought her to the convalescent home and dumped her off. Just said, wrote over the papers, you know, dropped her off. He finds out that she's been stuck here for 26 years, unable to communicate. He finds her her family's information, like her mother. He takes it upon himself to find the mother. I don't know how Marvin Zindler found this out, but the cameras were there when the mother shows up. And this is all on video. I'll put a link in the description. The mother shows up, and the woman's sitting there, and the mother says, "Hi, honey," and she doesn't know who she is. And she leans in and explains to her who she is, and the woman's looking face to face with her mother, and then she realizes who it is, and she just breaks into, starts bawling. She's been stuck in this place 26 years. No one bothers to communicate with her. Forrest Prince, the artist, spends some time with her, communicates with her like a human being,
Sure.
and finds out she's been stuck here, and then reunites her with her family.
Wow. Wow.
That's the story.
That's wild. So the husband. Let's go back to the husband.
All right.
I mean, do we get a name?
I think they probably just didn't want to. I don't know if there's an after story. I just heard this. And I didn't know this when I did the Tell Us Your Best Story with Forrest. I went to his studios. I had never met him. Jack Massing, with whom we had done another Tell Us Your Best Story, introduced us. Said, this guy's got great stories. And we decided to not do any stories with him, just to film his art. That was going to be his story. And you'll see this on an upcoming Tell Us Your Best Story. And so I met him, I did the video, and then I went home and did some research on Forrest Prince, saw all of his art, and then found these videos on YouTube with Marvin Zindler, and I was like, wow, this guy's amazing, you know.
So how old was the woman? Is the woman?
In the video, she looked to be maybe in her late 40s or early 50s or something.
So
I don't know.
she was young when she was dropped off.
Yeah.
Whew. So everything else was fine except for
She
her
couldn't speak.
mechanics. Of
Yeah.
speaking.
That's a trip.
Huh.
All right, that's a pretty heavy one, but I think we'll do a twofer because I'm here with Caitlin, and I want to do the story of how we met.
Okay. I love
Because
this.
that's a classic.
I love this.
So, all right, how Caitlin and I met. Now, you might be thinking, who cares about how someone met? And I agree. Who cares? Your cat's going to... Which one is this?
That's Murphy.
Murphy. Hey, Murphy. So, excuse me, Murphy. How we met. Sideshow Tramps, band I'm in, or was in, however you want to describe it. Sideshow Tramps are playing in Eureka Springs. I'm up on stage, and there's a crowd in the front. It's a small venue, and everyone's in church pews, as you'll recall. Jump in at any time.
Appropriate.
From your side of the story, jump in and tell the rest of us. So, I knew nothing about Caitlin. I had never met her before, and we're playing, and we're in the middle of the show, and she walks in. As she walks in, I see her on the side, and I'm always scoping the crowd to see how to play things, you know how I do.
Yeah.
And so I see you walk in, and she has a rabbit stuck in her jacket. This was your rabbit.
Yes.
Like a live rabbit.
His name was Danger Fist.
Danger Fist. So she walks into the venue, bunch of people, she goes and sits with a bunch of her friends, and I know she's got a rabbit in her vest, jacket. So I walk off stage, and as per Angus Young, I go out into the crowd. As you now know, Caitlin's recently been introduced to AC/DC, the best band in the world.
My favorite band, next to Sideshow Tramps. The two are so, like...
Well, I got a lot of my stuff from Angus and AC/DC. So I go out into the crowd. I'm walking with the cord. I'm pulling the cord through the crowd. I'm singing. Band's up on stage playing, and I start stepping over the pews. And everyone's watching me, of course. And I play like a harmonica solo, and then I have my top hat on. For those of you who don't know, I wore a top hat on stage named the Birdner. It was a big leather top hat, and its name was the Birdner. That's a story in and of itself.
Yeah.
How the Birdner got its name. I'll go ahead and throw that in.
Okay.
We got a triple story. How the Birdner got her name. His name. Clip the How We Met story. Insert how the Birdner got its name. We were playing at Helios every Monday night, and I would throw the hat out into the audience, and someone would grab it, and I would tell them to take it home for the week, because we played every Monday night.
Okay, I remember this.
Yeah.
I wasn't there, but I remember meeting Craig and telling him
And hearing
this
about
story.
this stuff. So I would throw the Birdner out into the audience every week, and people would take it home, and they'd take it on adventures. Who knows what all happened? I know that many things have taken place with the Birdner, and he's been on many adventures that I don't know of.
If hats could talk.
If hats could talk.
You need a little GoPro on him now.
That might squelch his hang, because people wouldn't act the same.
Sure, I don't act the same in front of the camera.
Yeah. So the Birdner, one person that I was hanging out with there, I won't mention her name, but one person I was hanging out with, I told her to take it with her for the week. She happened to be going to HSPBA, which is a high school in Houston. And so she takes it to her school. No need any questions. We were just friends.
Okay.
And so she takes it to the high school. These are all art kids, artists, or up-and-coming artists, I guess you'd say. And she plops the Birdner down in the common room at HSPBA, and she gets all of her friends around. HSPBA has different schools in it, like music, dance. It's like Hogwarts and Harry Potter. And so all these kids from different schools, the dance kids, the music kids, the whatever kids, the visual artist kids were gathered around my hat. And the burdener's sitting in the middle of everyone. And she goes, we need to name it.
Oh, wow.
So all these kids start throwing out names. And she's writing them all down and going to bring them back to me. And what'd you do? Threw your stuff on the ground.
Let it lie.
Let it lie. Let it be. So I remember one of the names was Elvis. Whatever. And there was a bunch of names. She brought back a list to me. But then she told me about this one kid who comes walking from the outskirts of the group. Have you heard this story?
No, I vaguely remember you telling me this.
One
feel
kid,
like I should.
one kid comes walking from the outskirts, and she said he held out his hands like this, and he walks through everyone like with full presentation, and he holds his hands out and he goes, "It should be called the Burdener."
Wow. Goosebumps, full body again.
And when she told me that, I was like, "That's what it's got to be." You know, you got the prophets in the Old Testament.
Is that how Jesus was named?
The prophets in the Old Testament, they would say the burden of Obadiah, or the burden of this when they would begin their prophecies. The music business being a burden, the music I'm playing ends up being a burden often. So the burdener, I was like, that's perfect. So that's how the burdener got his name. And I've still never met this kid who named the burdener. But anyway, all right, back to how we met. So I'm wearing the burdener. And I would walk out to the crowd, play the harmonica solo, and I'm straddling two pews, and there are people all around. And Caitlin, I guess you're watching me, and I reach down into her jacket, and I pull out the rabbit, and I take the hat off, and I bring it down low, and I put the rabbit inside the hat. And then I turn, and I lift it up to the crowd, and I pull the rabbit out of the hat. And everyone applauds, and then I hand the rabbit back to Caitlin, and that's how we became friends.
I didn't believe you were a monk. Because of your dancing.
I can see how that would be confusing sometimes. For those of you who don't know, I used to be a Catholic monk for 5 years. They may not, some of them may not know.
Oh, I didn't let cats out of the bag. Rabbits out of the
hat.
The
rabbits out of the hat. All right, any more stories we can think of?
Well, that day that you speak of, that was 12 years ago, 13 years ago. I was carrying this cup.
Really?
It had a handle.
In the venue, you had the cup?
I carried this cup everywhere, and my rabbit. The cup either had beer or a hermit crab in it.
A live hermit crab?
A live hermit crab that I got from Galveston.
And what was the hermit crab's name?
Mr. Veronica.
Mr. Veronica?
Yeah. We used to, I would take him in the cup down to the bar and take him out of the cup, fill my cup up with beer, and then we would make a corral out of old style bottles, and Mr. Veronica would hang out
on the bar?
We lost him. Remember that house at the bottom of Owen that I lived in, that I was living in when I met you?
That you accessed through a
pool ladder.
Through a pool ladder. Caitlin lived in a house in Eureka Springs down from here, and you would access the house through a pool ladder. There was a stairs on the other side, but for fun, from the street, because in Eureka Springs the houses are built up high, and you'd have to be here to know. But you could climb up a pool ladder and go into the.
We had full access through the church's yard, but I pissed the pastor off, and he...
That's a whole other set of stories.
That's a whole other story.
The ongoing war between Caitlin and the pastor of the church that was right next to her house.
Mr. Jimmy Martin. Love you, man. We're buddies. Okay. We're buddies now. I mean, his wife made sure of it, that we couldn't leave on bad terms.
Well, that's good.
So,
that's peaceable.
Yeah, definitely. I had Whitney Capps had a list of things you say, like, it is what it is, and stuff you say. Wherever you go, that's where you are. What are those called? Those pleasantries, or they're not a pleasantry.
Stuff you say.
Yeah. And there's a list of those.
Fillers.
So one day I knocked on his door and I had my list. I just read all of them off to him.
Wait a minute, I've never heard this. Okay, had you already been in war with him?
Yeah, for sure.
This is how you made up?
Uh-huh.
You come to his door.
It was
Ah, we have a guest.
hillbilly notion.
That's Bullet. That's her dog, Bullet. We'll come back with more stories from Caitlin because believe me, there's a bunch. So people tell great stories. Let's tell great stories, people. Don't forget to like and subscribe.